Good day, everyone. So we will be tackling about Briones' theory on early public finance and the breakdown of feudalism. First part will be tackled by Mark and Maribel. Second part will be tackled by Neil and Emil.
For this part, I will discuss early public finance, particularly during ancient slave societies. Public finance started together with the creation of the state. Wala pa kayo public finance because people mainly dependent on hunting and fishing. Most of the resources they gathered were immediately consumed. However, when agriculture developed and societies became larger and more organized, governments started collecting and spending resources. Ani nga early practices later became the foundation sa modern taxation, budgeting, accounting, and auditing. During ancient times, government spending was focused on only a few major functions. Ang una kay ang war and defense. Ang large portion sa public resources kay gigamit para i-maintain ang mga armies, i-protect ang mga teritoryo, ug i-conquer ang other places during ancient times. Ikaduha kay ang maintenance of peace, order, security, and justice. Another major expense was for state religion in the ruler's household. Government spent large amount on temples, religious activities, and the needs of the king. Ancient governments also funded public works such as roads, canals, irrigation system, and fortification. Ginakolekta sa mga government ang revenues nga gikan sa mga tributes, fines, looting, conquered nga territories, public lands, mines, and limited taxes. Ancient governments also practiced basic budgeting because they needed to divide their revenues among different activities. Auditing already existed as well, properly and legally used. This shows na even during ancient times, ang slight idea about accountability. So to sum up, ang ancient public finance limited. Most resources were spent on war, security, religion, the ruler, and public works. I think relevant siya sa Philippine Public Fiscal Administration kay it reminds us that public funds must be properly collected, allocated, spent, and audited. Unlike sa mga ancient rulers, moderno nga public officials should clearly separate public money from personal money because public funds belong to the common good.
Before we talk about public finance during the medieval period, let me first explain what feudalism is. Sa simple nga explanation, feudalism was a system where land was the main source of wealth and power. In return, they remained loyal to the king and provided soldiers whenever there was a war. The king gave them land, while the lords gave their loyalty and military service. These were the peasants. Sila gyud ang nagtrabaho sa mga uma ug nagproduce sa crops. Instead of paying taxes directly to the government, they give part of their harvest or labor to the lords. Because the lords controlled most of the land and resources, they also controlled much of the wealth. Tungod ani, limitado ang control sa king over public finances. This made it difficult for the central government to collect taxes, manage public funds, and provide services. The feudal system showed that when resources are controlled by different local leaders, it becomes harder for the government to manage the country's finances effectively. Mao nga people realized the need for a stronger central government that could properly collect taxes, prepare budgets, and manage public funds. To sum it up, the feudal system helped shape the development of modern public finance. Bisan na siya limitations, daghan gyapon ta og nakatunan gikan niini. It showed the importance of the centralized and well-organized financial system.
So I will be tackling about the decline of the feudal system and the rise of the central government. So basically it started when the central government's power expanded and that they have found out that they lack funds to support the expansion, and that's why they found ways to gather the source of funds in the form of taxation. So after they have implemented their taxation policies, new methods, and several methods, the conflicts arose when the people and the king have different views on taxation, and that is why they are divided, especially when conflict broke out in the French Civil War due to the people having resentment towards the government for the overly implemented form of taxation. They think that it's unfair. That is why they fought. They believe that taxes should have consent and not too much for them to handle. While we can't blame the king because he only believed what is best for the country, which is to gather the maximum funds to support their rising government. And then the Magna Carta of 1215 was later introduced, which compelled the kings to grant civil and political liberty, which then resulted to the restrictions on taxations and promoted national consent to taxation. So basically, it regulated the form of taxation in some way, and it was further strengthened when the Bill of Rights was introduced, which further strengthened the consent for taxation. And after the part where they resolved the major issues in taxation, they funds was still not enough. That's why they need to find another way to, aside from taxation, to collect funds. And then public borrowing became introduced, and then they also developed the system on public borrowings because they want to ensure that public borrowing was made in a manner that the loan repayment is guaranteed, and that it is there is no unjust activities that is existent during the process. So after improving the public borrowings, they introduced their system of auditing and public accountability with the same purpose of the COA. Auditing is to ensure that the proper usage of funds allocated was used in the right way, in their right and in the proper things that they are assigned to be spent on, and to ensure that the one who was allocated with the funds or entrusted to hold the funds are gonna take accountability for the actions that he will do with that. And so in short, the central government's rising power led to the proper taxation due to the lack of funds, and not just taxation but also public borrowings. And by the way, public borrowings, they have two opposing views. One believes that budget surplus is better because it can have emergency funds allocation, and on the other hand, the other side believes that borrowings is better because it increases the country's active capital stock. And then after the part after the public borrowings in taxation, they move on to the accounting and public accountability. So that is all. But basically, what we can learn from this paper is that how we respond to problems that arise when we manage, especially in this context where the rise of power does not mean comfort. It only means that you have to manage more stuff, and that to manage more means you also need more resources to support that expansion. And that is how the decline of the feudalism led to the proper taxation and budgeting, accountability and auditing, and public accountability. So it's all a series of events that resulted from the needs at that moment, from the needs of funds to cover up the rising power. And to summarize it all, we can learn that problems only reveal how creative we are in creating solutions and invent new methods. So that's all for my explanation on based on how I understood the paper, and I hope you learn something from it and you gain new insights on the reality and practicality of governance. So it's not just easy as being full of integrity. It is also about balancing insufficient resources to support the areas that must be supported. That is all. Thank you.
I will discuss the beginning of capitalism. Since the 15th century, the feudal system gradually eroded as individualism surged, leading craftsmen and merchants to disregard communal restraints. The onset of capitalism witnessed a series of transformative developments. Factories proliferated, technological innovations, burgeoned trade flourished, and the expansion of goods and service parallel population's growth. Factories were established to cater to a mass consumer's demands, while technological advancements facilitated exploration for raw materials and food resources in distant lands. Commercial trade surged alongside the establishment of colonies, resulting in heightened wealth accumulations and a corresponding surge in domestic market demands. These changes necessitated the evolution of new political and social systems capable of accommodating the expanding scope and complexity of modern life. So, the beginning of capitalism is the transition period of feudalism to modern economic system, and it was characterized by the private ownership, market competition, and profit motives. Encompasses economic theories and practices from 15th to 18th centuries. So it is an economic system where private individuals own the means of productions and operate in competitive market without significant government intervention. Emerged during the Industrial Revolution, this economic doctrine extended beyond the trade of strategies, encompassing various policies spanning from decline of the Middle Ages to the rise of laissez-faire capitalism. It emphasized state intervention in economic affairs, strategic accumulation of wealth through export colonizations, and the establishment of colonies to secure valuable resource and market. Mercantilism laid the groundwork for the transition to modern economy. So, mercantilism is the economic doctrine in Europe in 16th to 18th centuries. It was emphasized the state intervention for wealth accumulations and also involved taxation, budgeting, and public expenditure, and also influenced early capitalist development. So in taxation, imposition of tariffs and taxes for revenue and protectionism, while the budget and expenditures, the public spending on military bureaucracy and colonial ventures. That is that it is. The influence of mercantilism in public finance is the state of intervention is to promote growth and strengthen government. Arising during the Industrial Revolution, capitalism shifted societies towards private ownership of production, means and minimal government intervention in a trade and economies. It advocates for free enterprise and limited government functions and reliance on the market forces. It prevailed in Western Europe from the 16th to 18th centuries, aiming to bolster state wealth and power through export promotion and import restriction. Governments supported merchants and producers to accumulate wealth, particularly gold and silver. So that is the mercantilism. Cameralism, prevalent during the 17th to 18th century in Germany and Austria, advocate for economic self-sufficient and efficient administration under absolutist monarchs. It encompasses a range of disciplines including public finance, administration of order and economic policy, aiming to balance state control and societal interests. Analogs to modern economic policies, so the cameralism is the German variant mercantilism in 17th century, and it is focused on efficient administration and resource development, stimulated agriculture and manufacturing while reducing expenditures, addressed challenges through learning by doing. So by Joseph Sculptor, described the Cameralists as a consultant of administrators and highlighted their role as a consultant and administrators to rules the Germany during the emerge of Cameralism. So by the G. Becher, William von Scudder, and Philip von Hornig, this individualism laid the groundwork of cameralism by bringing lessons of rational administration and mercantilist economic policy to Viennese court of Emperor Leopold. They contributed to the development and application of cameralist principles in governments and economic policy in Australia. By Frederick William pursued an aggressive policy of stimulating agriculture and manufacturing while reducing unnecessary expenditure in Prussia. These policies, known as cameralism, aimed to improve economic conditions and strengthen the state. These individuals played significant roles in the development and implementation of economic policies during the respective periods of mercantilism and cameralism, influenced the economic landscape of their regions. So, the coin as these rules of nature emphasize the land as primary wealth source, minimal government interventions, taxations based on the land productivity, not arbitrary decisions. Then let's do the physiocracy. Physiocracy originating in 17th century in France marked the first scientific schools of economics asserting the government policy should not impede natural economic laws and identifying land as a primary source of wealth. So Francois Quesnay, as a French economist, championed this doctrine, emphasized that economic process adhere to a natural law and land-based products hold monetary values crucial state in finances. So, physiocrats advocate for a single direct tax on the land rent income derived from agricultural production as a basis for stable taxation, believing that agricultural surplus provided the most reliable revenue. They critique the mercantilism for economic regulations and focus of manufacturing foreign trade, advocating instead for freedom in labor and commerce. Additionally, physiocrats argued against aristocratic involvement in the state's affairs, proposing professionals bureaucracy to reduce taxation and to minimize government and bureaucracy. They contended that small government and equitable tax structures were essentially for economic prosperity. So, the physiocracy is the French economic thought in 18th century. It was advocated in a minimal government intervention and free trade. So the advocate and it was proposed single tax on agricultural land rent income, emphasize agricultural as the primary source of wealth. So that is physiocracy, and it is imposed aristocratic involvement in administrations. Coined as the rule of nature, emphasized the land as primary wealth source and minimal government intervention. Taxations based on the land productivity, not arbitrary decisions.